We will have guests from the next episode, so hopefully you're not bored of me by now. And I'm just sort of finalising just the last little bit about what, how I became a pro bodybuilder and my journey to sort of get to that spot. And again, it leads on very nicely from episode 2 in how and what I have done to sort of get to where I am now. And like I've said before, a lot of everything I've done has been a bit of a domino effect and a butterfly effect, however you want to call it. And I think that's really nice. And yeah, when I explain it to people, I'm still like, yeah, that's kind of just how it happened. And so when obviously in lockdown, I worked with my first coach, Courtney, and I said, sod it. I was like, let's coach me. I was like, let's see what we can do. I have no idea what I'm capable of. There was a part of me that was like, oh, wonder what it would be like to actually see my abs. And I've always done dancing and always stayed pretty determined with my dancing and my exams and stuff. So I knew there's always that determination in there. And even when I perform on stage, with a group of people, it's, I'm always determined to sort of get everything sort of right and just perform my best and be my best. And so that is kind of the thing that's always stayed consistent with everything I do, is be the best you, and just improve that. And that's all you can do. And as humans, that's the most we can give. So yeah, I don't know where to even begin. So I started with, obviously I was carrying on with Court, and we tracked macros, proteins, fats and carbs, and on my MyFitnessPal. I'd never tracked before. So I was like, what the hell is going on? I got to scan stuff. I've got to understand why. And he obviously gave me my set goals and I followed it. But I had to sort of stay within these targets, and that was my goal. And obviously he set me some cardio targets, and I was training, and I had a set amount of sessions that I needed to do, or that I was aiming for a week. And I just went for it. So I did my training. I didn't follow too much of a strict plan in terms of training, and I just did the sort of roughly same-ish sessions each week. Knowing what I know now, I probably switched it up a little bit too much, and I could have achieved much more being consistent with the same session. And obviously that we'll get on to that part. And I had no idea what was going on. And I think my first transformation with Court was 12 weeks. It was a photo shoot transformation. And I said, okay, let's do a photo shoot. So I ended up doing a joint photo shoot with Danielle. And hello, if you're listening. And from our group that we did workouts with in lockdown, and the group of friends that we stuck with, and we were on transformations together, even though they were all at different times. And Courtney was coaching us all, and it was epic. It was so much fun. We did workouts on the fields because the gyms weren't open yet, or when they closed again. And we were just pushing limits, and training for me really ramped up a gear from this year. So it ramped up a gear from what I was doing at university. And so obviously being on this journey with Court and just working towards it, I was like, oh, like things are happening, and my body completely transformed. My composition completely changed throughout. Even like I remember doing sort of my check-in photos after like I think 2 to 4 weeks, and I was like, what the hell have you done? Like, what is going on? And I'd never done anything like this before. All I'd done is exercise of dancing or performing, and a lot of that's mainly cardio based, and I've never really focused on what I needed to eat, and because it's a whirlwind, I think we just think, if we're exercising, yeah, that's cool, but actually as soon as we take into consideration what we're eating and our nutrition, the game can change completely. And that's something so powerful that when you're sort of going through it and experiencing it, and even my team would say the same, we don't have to jump or make any dramatic changes. We just have to understand a little bit more. So I was scanning things in shops, like looking at the protein content, and I started to begin to understand what proteins, fats and carbs were. And we don't know that, I think when we think of going on a diet, I don't like that word, but, we think of like Slimming World or, Weight Watchers. You can tell by my voice, it's not my favorite form of sort of understanding. They don't teach you anything. They just say, okay, yeah, just follow this. You don't teach why should we be having protein, or why should we be having good essential fats, and why we should be having carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are so demonized in diet culture, and actually they are your best friend. and no one likes to ditch carbs. Like, no thank you. So yeah, and I was learning more and more and more, and my body was changing entirely. And then the first photo shoot came around, and I'd never, ever seen my body in this way. I'd never done anything like it. Obviously, 12 weeks flew by, and I'd done it over summer. So this must have been, I think it was the summer of 2020. I think I started in July, ish, or June, July, August. So it was 12 weeks. So yeah, I think I finished it August. So it was quite late into summer, before sort of like summer was over. And it was awesome. I loved it. So I did the shoot with Danielle, and we just had the best day. And I had no idea what to expect. I'd never worked with a photographer before in that way, and it was crazy. And Courtney was sort of showing me ways to pose, and my body had never ached so much afterwards. Oh my goodness me. And sort of being in the gym, and it was crazy, but I wasn't nervous, but it was a bit nerve-wracking to start, and being around other people. Obviously, you've got other people in the gym, and we did our shoot at Physique Warehouse Gym in West Molesey, I think it is. And it's an awesome gym, absolutely epic. And the equipment is just so cool, and some of the stuff is old school. And so yeah, and the confidence just came from that, and I just loved it. I loved every second of it. And I was thinking, wow, I've done this, and this is like a massive celebration of my achievement, of what I've put my mind to. Now, over anything else, like, yeah, the sort of the photos and sort of feeling a little bit shreddy. Now looking back, I absolutely wasn't that shredded. But it was the first time I'd seen myself lean and pushing for those goals. But that was almost the byproduct of the process. And I always say to people, you've got love the process, because you can't get from being A to B without what happens in between. And that is really important. You've got to love your training and be passionate for it, and chase what your next improvement's going to be, and seeing what you're capable of. And that is the best part. And that's when I knew something really clicked. Now, Courtney said to me at the time, and he was like, oh, would you ever compete? And I was like, no way would I ever compete. Way too much, pushing your body to the absolute limits, and it's just too much. And I thought, no, it's not healthy. And yeah, I couldn't even imagine it. Anyway, fast forward a year, and it comes back round, and Courtney offers a 10-week shoot, like sort of protest. 10 weeks to work towards a shoot, whereas my previous one was 12. And I said, sod it, let's go again. Let's go. Let's see what we can do. Now, in between that time, I did not have any strict coaching. I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of how to come out of a shoot. Now, knowing what I know now, it's really important to understand how we come out of diet phases. You know, the same as when people do swimming well, for example, you know, yeah, it works, cool, yeah, look amazing, feel amazing, I'm going to stop. And then they don't know the habits that they need to then implement to sort of find that maintenance level. You know, how do we keep these up? But we can't always stay at that lower sort of calories or macros, or however you want to look at it. We need to like sort of just find this sweet spot of where we're feeling good and confident, not like we need to diet all year round. So I just kind of ate a little bit more, like was chilling, had some good times with friends, had some celebrations afterwards, didn't really know, I didn't go through sort of a post-shoot period for that first one. So obviously the second one comes around, and my body responds even quicker. I got even leaner in an even shorter amount of time. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is very, very different. And I was working towards this shoot with Dawn, who again was in our lockdown crew on the fields, and we did workouts and we did lockdown Zoom quizzes as a sort of lead on from the previous episode. And we were working towards it together, and we had training ramped up a gear, and I was following more of a stricter regime in terms of my training. And actually, you don't want to chop and change your workouts constantly. You actually now, like, bodybuilding's really boring. Like, people are like, oh, workouts do you do? What's the secret? I do the same thing day in, day out, which is probably why I don't post many of my workouts. Training tips and tricks, very, very different. But if I was to post my workouts every single day or every single week, you would see the same thing. Maybe I'd add 1 more rep or 2 more reps, or maybe I'd change the weight, but actually the exercise itself is the same. So we get into this 10 weeks transformation towards the shoot. Now, the shoot was a lot earlier, but things got a little bit crazy, and it's a process. Understanding bodybuilding can be tough and there can be extremes, and it's finding and understanding that balance. Now, I obviously had macros set for me. They were different to my first year. It always changes, your body changes, your body develops, you need new macros for your sort of new composition, etc. And I became quite food focused. Now, looking back now, and I say to people, I didn't realize how like serious it was at the time, but I basically, I know when I finish that shoot, I can have that. Oh, when I finish the shoot, I can go out for that meal. And it just kind of escalated a little bit. So I was like buying, every time I go to the supermarket, I would buy like chocolate bars or biscuits or cookies or whatever. And I ended up with a box, and it was humongous. It was stacked up to the brim. And I thought, I'm not going to wham it all in one, but I can have it. I can have all of these things when I've finished. But no one needs that much food for when you finish a phase like this. And little did I know sort of the impact that it would long term or short term have on my body. Everything's temporary. So any struggles, it's always temporary. We can always overcome things chatting to people and understanding, like, and because in the first 12 weeks, the year before, I didn't really understand, I didn't know that any of these, so I didn't have any of these feelings because I didn't know what was going on. And I just kind of did each step as I come. I would do as I told, my coach could tell me to jump off a cliff and I'd do it. I'm very much like, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And we had, the shoot was even more insane, and I was even leaner, and I was like, oh my God, I'm pretty damn shreddy, and this is freaking cool. So we just carried on. And we smashed the shoot, and we had a lovely, lovely meal at Gaucho's in Richmond afterwards. So it was the same as at the same place, and I did it with Dawny, and she smashed it, and it was just epic. And I've got friends for life from that group, and I will sort of never forget sort of those moments. And I'm still friends with them and catching up with them most weeks now. And then obviously, again, I didn't have any coaching after that. And I went crazy. So I was going for meals out, I was going for breakfast out, I was going for breakfast, lunch and dinners, I was eating from my snack box. And I didn't really know, like, ideally, we want to eat, that sort of a little bit more healthier levels of body fat. Rather than sort of just zooming it all in one. And it's not sort of, it's a lot of a different to the body when you've sort of been eating sort of the same foods for a long period of time, and you've been working towards something. As soon as you sort of shove in something different, it's like, whoa. Now, none of those things are bad, and it's just managing those indulgences, really. And I just carried on, and it took me about 4 months to feel comfortable again in myself. And I could feel sort of the changes that were just a little bit too much for what I should have done, but I didn't know any different. I didn't know that. I just assumed, okay, yeah, once you finish something, you can just enjoy everything. Now, yes, times are there to be enjoyed. Off season is there to be off season. So when off season and prep, so obviously they were my shoot preps. Off season is sort of when you're in those phases out of it, and you're pushing for muscle growth and pushing in the gym, and you're in a slight surplus of food. And so then, but after reflecting from my second shoot, I thought, wow, maybe I could compete. I've never seen myself like this, and that's pretty awesome. And I thought, okay, this is a bit scary. So I was messaging and trying to find a little bit more information from prep coaches and what they were doing and who would be the right coach. It takes a while to find your coach, and I wouldn't be on stage without what Courtney had pushed me towards in both of those shoots, and I'm forever thankful for it hugely. So we kept, I was like messaging around and whatnot. Anyway, during lockdown, I also got approached by a friend, Ellie Probin, and she had her own fitness company and was doing bits and pieces, and she worked for an external company, Rax Fitness, and so I did some work with them as well during lockdown and quite a long time after that. And she had a coach, and she was always tagging him in his stories, and I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, my coach now at the time, Ellie's coach, he was doing like a protein taster sample with a friend of his in my gym. So we would sample in loads of different protein flavors. And I was like, cool. Anyway, I was at work, obviously, on this evening when they came in to do this tasting, and sort of see with other members of the gym and different pre-workouts and all of that, which was pretty cool. And I didn't really sort of know too much about the pre-workout or protein world. Now, I never actually used to like protein bars. I never used to like protein powder. You just got to find your one. And there are some shocking flavors and shocking companies that just push out all of these different protein bands. And actually, they're just mass produced. Find some individual companies and you will find the ones you like. They're not all grim. They're not all like sickening. And there's loads of different types. Anyway, I still thought, I know who you are, so I'm going to speak to you because I know you prep people for the stage. And I had no idea. And I'd spoken to a previous coach that I was almost ready to go with, but he didn't give me a very good response. And I was just like, no, I don't feel like we're going to vibe. And I had pantomime that year and it was really hard to manage because obviously I'm just doing cardio 24/7. So I spoke to John Berry. I spoke to him and I was there for 40 minutes and I walked out and I thought, you are going to be my coach. You're going to be my coach. And I messaged instantly, like that evening. I was so excited when I got home. I was like, oh my God, I've spoken to John and this and that, and this is what he does and this is what he's going to do. And that was awesome. So I was so excited. The next day I messaged Ellie. I was like, would you recommend John? And then he had a space opening and I was like, let's go. Anyway, he was opening his gym, Physique Architect Gyms in Fleet, which I've mentioned before. And we were ready to sort of start. I was ready to start from the new year and we started working together. So I spoke to him in the October 2021. Feels so long ago. And then we were ready to start in February of 2022 because he started opening his gym and he said, let me open the gym first and we're good to go. And that was it. So he had no idea what training I did or what nutrition I was really on, sort of gave him a big background. We had a massive, massive long chat. And we started to work together. Now I said, I want to work towards a shoot and I'd love you to see me work towards a shoot and see me out of a shoot to reverse and understand the nutrition around that to then see me into a stage prep. And now we're sort of just in a never ending circle. And that was really cool. So we started together and we just kept going. And I think I did a 10-week recomposition and I completely changed my shape. And I became more of an athletic shape and more of an athletic build for the push for the stage of what I wanted to achieve. And I wanted to achieve and go into figure. Now there are many, many categories, female categories. You've got bikini, you've got wellness, you've got figure, you've got women's physique. And there's bikini trained and open bikini and there's in figure, there's toned athletic and trained. And so you've got so many categories and, you've got to fit in. There's always one that you fit into and your shape suits more and the lines, etc. So we were going and he gave me my training program. He gave me my nutrition program. And to start with, and he will know that I've said this before, I've said this to many people, I was so overwhelmed. I absolutely cried my eyes out. I was like, nope, I can't do this. This is intense. This is a whole new way of working. I got a meal plan instead of macros. And I was like, I've never had a meal plan before. And it was all cooked weight. And I was like, John, I've only ever done raw weight. Like, how do I do this? And it was just very overwhelming. And he was like, slow and steady wins the race. And he will still say that every day to this day. And I just did it. Okay. one step at a time. What don't I understand? I asked him millions of questions and I just wrote them down. And honestly, every time he gives me a new sort of training program or something, he gets lots and lots of questions, because if I give him loads of questions and he answers them, I'm more confident. Now, that's why you can't hide. If you don't understand something, ask. Don't sit there and worry about it. Ask, do something about it. And I say this to my clients, be in contact with me. Tell me what you're struggling with so I can help you. Because the sooner we do that, the sooner you're going to sort of understand it and feel more confident and blah, 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 blah. So we just did it step by step. So I did a 10-week recomposition. My body changed. And then we did another 8 weeks and we ramped things up a gear. Cardio got up to everything. And I pushed towards a shoot. Now I was pretty lean. And I was started learning the poses for figure. Now, posing in bodybuilding is a whirlwind. And I think understanding how your muscles contract and flex is really something so specific. We don't know how. It's all well and good being able to sort of train them, but we've got to imagine that now when we pose. So we've got to understand how we can move our muscles to pose. Now, obviously, the posing in bodybuilding is the icing on the cake. If you don't know how to pose, it's going to really let your physique down, because you want to show all your best assets. And so without that, you can't show everything off in the best way possible for you to win in the best way. So I started to learn. Now, my posing was very questionable, even by the time of the shoot. And I loved the shoot and it was great. And I had a friend, Charlie, she was helping me and she helped along my posing and she helped along my journey, and she's competed herself and I looked up to her so much, and her journey that she'd done, because she competed that year, and we went and watched, and the atmosphere was incredible, and I was just like, wow, this is so cool. I want to do this, and I can't believe this is probably going to be me next year. And it was just so inspiring. And then we just carried on. So we did the shoot and then I came out of it and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. I also had a holiday booked to St. Lucia. Now my shoot was in June. Oh, end of May. I lie. End of May, because St. Lucia was in June. So I had a couple of weeks post shoot where things were really steady and I had a control of things. And I was like, wow, this is how it's supposed to feel. Just eking out of that diet phase, having a few treats, having a bit of flexibility. And that was cool. And then I had my holiday to St. Lucia, and that was a 2-week all-inclusive. We hadn't been on holiday since COVID. It was amazing. It was for my mum's 60th birthday. And there was cocktails galore. There was a gym there. I went once. And there was a lot of moving, and the resort was huge. And it was just the most incredible holiday. So obviously I came back. My composition had shifted ever so slightly, but we want to be in the most optimal position to grow. We don't, the same as when I did that 10-week recomp, we wanted my body to be in the best position to then really push things, and we ramped up a gear before the shoot. So, and this is all a process, and we've got to understand that there's no process that's permanent. The more sort of cutting down, like that's permanent, food's always going to be there. It's not going anywhere. So when we've just, there are times that we can just drop things. Like we don't need people are, it's so restrictive. Yes, bodybuilding is restrictive in prep. You have your set goals and that's that. However, in lifestyle, in what I teach my clients, is you can have those things, but sometimes there are phases that actually it's okay to just minimize that so that we can push a little bit closer to the goals we want to achieve. But the goal can always shift. If you want to have those further indulgences or birthdays or Christmas and holidays, enjoy them. Like, live for them. Like, we're human. That's what we want to do. We want to enjoy all those times. And obviously in bodybuilding it is a bit more extreme. And obviously I will talk further about the sort of extremes and things in comparison to lifestyle. And so I was coming out of it, and it was really, really good. And I just, my coach and John said, what I want you to do is I just want you to come back down a little bit, just get into a routine post-holiday, before we then push your food and push your training and give you a new training program. And so that all happened. It took a long time. I say a long time. It took like 6 weeks before he was ready for sort of me to be in a position to grow. So then we took a 6-month off season, and that was pushing training. and pushing food and also having some enjoyment. I went on a few holidays in that time. I enjoyed birthdays and all Christmas and everything. And that's where, like, you know, you can really sort of enjoy those times. And I said to people, you know, I'm written off next year. I've got prep, stage prep. And yeah, so it was a great time. It was a lovely time. And then prep began and it was epic. So my training program didn't shift, but obviously we worked to different phases. So obviously switched up my food. I had high, medium and low days. It feels like a whirlwind ago. And I started prep at the start of February. My first show was in July. So my first prep was 22 weeks. And then I had another 7 weeks before my next show. And yeah, so we started prep, we kept going. Now it's pretty boring. We do the same thing day in, day out. Didn't make too many changes along the way. There was only 2 major food shifts I think he did and sort of decrease things. But you know, if your body's responding, we don't always need to decrease calories. We don't always need to, you know, my output, he sort of switched around my output. And again, my cardio didn't start super high. It started, I think, at about 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes. And then he'd like maybe add 5 minutes or he'd add another session on. So throughout my week. Now, by the end of prep, I was on 60 to 75 minutes every day of cardio, of training. I was on the stairs. My heart rate had to be at a certain point. I was eating, and throughout the whole of prep, I ate 6 meals a day on a rest day, and I ate 7 meals a day on a rest day. On a training day, sorry. And people are always like, oh my God, you must be on nothing. No, I'm eating. Do not worry, because you don't want to look depleted on stage. You don't want to look like a string bean. You want to be full. You want your muscles to be pumped. Yes, obviously manipulating our food will aid the fat loss to reveal everything, but we want our muscles to pop, not be like shrunken and sort of shriveled is the best way to describe it. And I think that was the most shocking thing for people. And yes, obviously when you're dieting, your output is so high. I was getting up at 5 a.m. Was doing my cardio first thing in the morning. I had 15K steps to do. Now it changed. I wasn't always at that. This was just right by the end of it. And those 22 weeks, and I had no idea what to expect. It was my first time on stage, and I had posing one-to-ones every week, and I was sort of buying so much, and prep's expensive. It's not a cheap sport, but you love it. I loved my training. I loved doing what I did. Had a pretty breezy prep. Now, from perceptions of what people had told me, I was always told, you'll be in the trenches, you'll feel rubbish, you'll feel constantly tired, you'll feel so fatigued, and you're not going to really know what's going on. And yes, I had my moments of fatigue, but I loved it. I loved every single second of prep, and I can honestly say that. And I didn't have any troubles. My team were awesome. I feel like the people who got it in the back the most was my family because I'd talk all day. I'd be with my clients all day, and I'd get home and I wouldn't want to talk all day and talk for the rest of my evening because I'd be absolutely shattered by doing 15K steps a day. I was spending, now whether you're in off season or prep, my training never changed, right? My training was always, so I'd always train 5 times a week, 2 rest days. And that never changed, but what did change is on top of that, I was spending 2.5 hours extra of my day on steps and cardio. Now your steps are not included in cardio, they are separate. So it's just extra output. And I was still eating, I was planning out my meals around my day, and I was cooking a lot of stuff fresh. I did prep some meals, and I just needed to make sure I had everything cooked. And that was quite tough, but you just do it. You just go for it. Absolutely go for it. And like I said before, my coach could tell me to jump off a cliff and I would do it. Okay, do it, change, yes, do it. Okay, yes. You tell me to do that. Okay, I'm on it. Like, I gave him no reason to tell me that I wasn't I wasn't going to be ready. He never said that. And he never said, I never questioned what he was telling me to do. I trusted him with my entire existence. And I will say that to everyone. I've said it to him as well. And I honestly think, you know, he could drop my food to nothing and I would still do it. And it was amazing. And he changed the game completely for me. And I said, you've now got me till one of us is dead. I said, I'm not going anywhere. And you've got me for life now. and it was just so fascinating, the process and understanding. And I was on fire, and I was just going and going and going and going, and nothing was going to stop me. And I never questioned once. And a lot of people tell me, oh, you think you're not going to be ready? You think you're not going to be ready? I didn't have any of those thoughts, because I was like, I trust you entirely. I don't not think I'm not lean enough. I never, I had some thoughts that I could give more, but actually I couldn't. I was doing everything I possibly could. I was doing everything I was told. I wasn't adding anything in. I wasn't taking anything away. I was doing things to a T. And that's another thing where my mindset and determination comes from. I just will do what takes to push for my goal that I wanted. And I wanted to push to be competitive. And in my first show, it was more than I could ever imagine. And I placed second. And it was just, I had my coach by my side from start to finish. I had 40 people in the audience watching me. It was a local show. My bikini was just a bikini of dreams, and it cost me a bomb, but it was worth every single penny. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. So from the second prep started, from the second prep ended. Now, obviously, so I got to the stage. That was my journey leading up to that point. Now, we had another show booked, and I was doing posing. I had a posing coach, and she was there on the day as well. And I competed with one of my best friends, Emily, who also owns the clothing company I'm sponsored by, Emerge Elite. And she was on stage with me, and we just had the best time ever. I was connecting with other athletes and got to know them. And I'm now meeting up with them outside of my work times, which is pretty awesome. And the industry is incredible. And it's just beautiful to watch. And I loved watching the shows and seeing other people. And I would never forget coming into the auditorium before I needed to be backstage and thinking, I'm getting on that stage. That's me. I'm not coming to watch. I'm getting on it. And I got goosebumps, and I just sat next to my coach, and I thought, that's me in a few hours. And it was terrifying, but so exciting. And I watched a couple of shows, obviously the year before, when I was doing my shoot with John, and it was so inspiring. And I thought, I can do this, and I'm gonna do this. So then we had the little bit between the shows. There was 7 weeks. We pushed a bit further. Now, that was hard. That was a little bit tougher. Now, I had a little bit of a relax. I had a bit of a freedom-ish few days after my first show. Now, I didn't go ballistic. You've just got to manage it, because I knew I was going back into it. Or going back into prep. I didn't come out of prep. I stayed in prep. I was just enjoying some nice occasions to celebrate with friends. Now, after the first show, my parents said, oh, everyone can come here. We got pizza. We had a pizza and pasta party. So I got Costco pastas, and it was just so nice. And we had some treats. And my friend Ellie J. Gunter, she's got Ellie J's Kitchen, and she made this brownie platter and sweet treats. And it was just delish. And and those are the times you want. It's not about, yes, the food's enjoyable, but it's those moments you share with them, with your family and your loved ones. You want to give back to them, because, you've been sort of narrow-minded and not really doing much. And prep, you can socialize, you can go and do things. The thing that I think gets a bit blurry is that you want to be careful with where your energy is. You want to be careful with where you put your energy, because you need to conserve as much as you can to give to your training, to give to your cardio, so that's perfect, or that's to a T. So that's why, people sort of just reduce down the amount they're doing, because it's a lot. And it was tough going back into it after I've had a few days of freedom. That first week, or the second week, should I say, was quite tough. And I had one wobble, and some of my reps didn't increase. And my reps, I never lost strength throughout the whole of prep. I just had to be obviously a bit more careful towards peak week, which is peak week is the week before your show. And you have to be sort of reduce fatigue, and you have to manage your output, and it just sort of drops off, so that you feel fresh for the show. Your body feels fresh, recovery is on point, and your show is at your best. You've got your most energy. So it was a little bit tough, and I had one session. It was a leg session, and I remember saying to John, that was really, really tough. Like, oh my God. And I just sort of was in my head a little bit. Anyway, the next week came, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I've had my wobble. And all the other sessions were phenomenal. So then we had my next show. Now, within that time, my posing coach said to me, I think you should do another one. And I said, oh, with this federation that she works closely with. Now, the federation names are hilarious. They're all very, very similar. The first one was WNBF, which is the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation, as I am a natural athlete. And they test the athletes, and it just means that you're on the same playing field as other people, compared to, obviously, if you're not assistants, you have to, hats off to sort of everyone, and I have nothing against it. I think it can be quite a taboo subject, so it'd be interesting to chat further about that on another episode. But you want to be on the same playing field as people sort of like you, more or less, so that it can be judged sort of the same. Whereas obviously if I'm competing against assisted athletes, obviously the judging is going to be very fair, but I might just be at a slight disadvantage potentially. Now, natties can hold their ground, may I add, and I will go on to explaining a little bit more about that. And my posing coach said, oh, why don't you do this show? So I said, okay, where is it? Or when is it? She said, oh, it's the day before your other one in Wales. And my jaw dropped. And I thought, oh my gosh, back-to-back shows over one weekend on a Saturday and a Sunday. My planned show was on the Sunday, and that was a natural show. This one, it was assisted, or it was untested. So there you could be against people that were assisted. So I was like, oh gosh, okay. And she was like, you can do a routine. I'd not done a routine before. The posing, you can do different types of posing and overhead posing. Now, certain federations have certain ways of posing and have certain criteria for their posing, and others have a bit more flexibility. So my posing coach, Abby, I said, okay, this is going to be a conversation with John, because he's going to know best, and I'm going to be tired, and I've never managed 2 shows. It's my first season. I don't know what to expect. So he said, let's do it. I said, okay, here we go. So I had to plan my trip with Wales with my girls, and I had to, obviously, I couldn't drive down there. And because I'd just be too tired, too fatigued, I wouldn't be able to drive back, and I'd obviously have to drive back to straight do it again, all over again. And so I got my team, my girls came down, I had Steve coming to film it. He filmed the whole weekend, which was awesome. And obviously on all my socials, I've got a lot of highlights about my shows, and a little bit on my TikTok as well. And yeah, it was awesome. So we went to the show, we drove down to Wales on the Friday. My peak week stayed the same. And I thought, I'm already peaking, I'm already off work because I needed to rest. So it just worked well. Okay, so that was that. I thought, okay, we'll work towards it. I could do more fun poses. We created a routine, and I actually choreographed my own routine, and my posing coach just spiced it up a little bit. I chose my music. I knew what I was going to do, and I loved it. That routine has my entire heart. So we went up to Wales, and then the next day, and it was just awesome. It was a seamless running show. So that was NFM. NFM/GBO. So GBO is like the organisation, and NFM are the federation that sort of take on that. And we did it. We went on stage. I was on stage, I think, second or third category, because obviously they have all the male bodybuilding categories as well, and all the and then there was opportunities that were available for doing that show, and my opposing coach said, you could be awarded pro if you win your class. You can then compete in the pro show in the evening or the afternoon, and then you could potentially go for the pro overall in the Atlas. And obviously all of those are hypothetical situations, but it was opportunities that we could just try and go for. And the other opportunities for the other shows hadn't sort of pushed in that way. There was the open finals for the first show I did, and just so many things to toy around. And we did it. We won. I placed first, and I've never been so shell-shocked in my life. And I had my little gang of four compared to 40 in my first show, were just screaming. And I had Emily was backstage with me, and she did my pump up with me. I had every single thing laid out from John, everything that I needed to do. And I was nervous because I'd only done one show, and I had him by my side the whole time. So I was really scared. And he was like, you'll be fine. And I knew he was on the other side of the phone if I needed him. And he had work and he had clients, and he was back not in Wales. He was working. So, and I did it. And I could have cried when I came off stage. Anyway, when I was on stage, they then awarded me my pro status. And I was just like, what is happening? Nothing was processing at the time. And I came off stage and they were filming me from the offset. And I had my coach on the phone screaming. And it was just so surreal. My parents couldn't be there. They were away in Mauritius for their anniversary. And I was just like, what is happening? What is happening? So it meant I could compete in the evening or the afternoon. So I had a bit of time. I tried to process it. My tan was running everywhere. I was like sweating. I needed to get that touched up. And I was like trying to have a conversation. I needed to eat food. It was a whirlwind of a day. And I needed to sort of resort out what I needed to eat. And then obviously I had to get in my head that, hang on a minute, we're doing this all again tomorrow. So I competed in the afternoon. I placed second. And yeah, and it was only me and the other girl, Natalie, her name is, and she was incredible. And she just had that more mature muscle. She was much older than me, and she'd sort of obviously been doing it a lot longer, and her physique was just fantastic. And I didn't feel out of place, which I was buzzing with, especially being against the pros. You know, I have no idea where I'm going to stand. And so after that, we carried on, and I competed in the afternoon. That was awesome against Natalie. And then I needed to wind my head back in because we had I needed to get home and drive home. And Emily needed to drive us home to go do it all again. And that was quite something. And so I needed to come back with my coach. Okay, what do I need to eat? Because I've got a show tomorrow. I need to, and so I came home, came back, and I went to my coach's house and I said, okay, what am I eating? What am I doing? And we did it all over again on the Sunday for UK DFBA. Now the posing was just all below head. It was very simple. Now I won't bore you too much with that as we sort of conclude into this section, but it was awesome. And I was so proud of the condition and the lines that we brought, and my condition, and the girl who I placed second and the girl who won, she had just the most beautiful shoulders. And I was on such a high from everything, and just to place in a lineup of incredible females was something that I will never ever forget. And they were, every lineup from the first show to my second show to my third show was just awesome, and they were incredible. And I just remember being like, little old me, and I've done this, and I've brought the condition that I needed to bring. I've executed everything I needed to execute, and I stood my ground, and I feel really powerful to sort of have placed first in that second show as a natural as well, and against other people that may have been assisted. And yeah, we just did it. We did it. And it was an incredible season. Obviously, I will speak more about my bodybuilding journey and other people that were along the way, and topics within bodybuilding. But that's sort of how my journey came about. And it starts way back when. And I hope you've sort of enjoyed me talking about it. And I can delve further into my shows and the process and the peaking process and all of that. I think they're really fascinating subjects which not a lot of people think about or understand. And you know, people, you say bodybuilder to someone and someone thinks I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, I do not walk posed all the time. I'm not tanned like a little tangoed bean, because you have obviously 2 layers of spray tan, and you don't wash it off, and you have the bikini, and it's all very show you posing heels, and it's a whirlwind. And that weekend for Wales and the local show on the Sunday was just immense. I had all my family and friends around me, and I had just the most chilled time. I knew what I was doing, and I knew the process compared to my first show. And it was pretty damn awesome. And I couldn't have asked for a better first season. And obviously we decided to come out of things now, and there were opportunities, and we could have gone for finals, and we could have gone for the pro show. But obviously I know what I need to grow. I need to grow my shoulders. So we're just 6.5 weeks post show, and we're sort of heading into off season. My training's pushing, reps are going up, my food's increased, and yeah, stay tuned for off season, or if you want to know more about what that means. And it's really exciting. Now, I won't be getting on stage now till 2025. But I've hope I've highlighted a little bit about my journey to becoming a bodybuilder and a pro bodybuilder within GBO. And obviously there are goals that I want to push for now, and I'm against the pros, so I've got to stand my ground, and I want to stay competitive, and I want to be the best that I can. And and I think just the achievement of getting on stage is huge enough, and a placing's just wowza from that. And I never expected anything from my first season, and I never hated any part of it. And it was just incredible, and we really achieved something. Now, obviously, I will delve a little bit deeper into my journey when I have my coach beside me on board as a guest in a couple of episodes' time. And it'll be really interesting to now have guests on moving forward, talking about these training topics, talking about fitness, talking about mobility, and I want to do some talk about hormones and things. So there is a lot incoming, but moving forward, I will always have someone beside me talking about these awesome topics, and hopefully something that you find inspiring or interesting. And my journey hasn't been I've not planned really any of it, but take those opportunities as they come and don't stop. And that's what I'm forever doing and still doing, and just excited for what is in store. So stay tuned for the next episode. And yeah, thank you again for joining.
Hi, I'm Dee Shepherd from SMJ Media Group. If you like what we do, and if you enjoyed what you heard today, then please do continue to support us. Support us in our conversations, in our events, in our communication, and how we publish and how we promote all local businesses. So how do you do that? Well, you can buy me a coffee. Where? buymeacoffee.com/SMJ Media Group.